This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com and buildermasterclass.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. It's my job to help you, the construction business owner, eliminate chaos and maximize profit. I've got a great interview for you today with Justin Bride. He is the founder and principal of Ascent Contracting, A-S-C-E-N-T, Ascent Contracting in Denver. And here's what you're going to get out of this interview. We talk about the difference between commercial and construction, or commercial and residential construction, and what each can learn from the other. The importance of pre-construction in the residential construction industry and what it looks like when it's not done well. Justin talks about how to market to architects, why you want to market to architects if you're a builder and remodeler, and how to build relationships with them. Talk about how Justin gets referrals from clients and how referrals are the number one lead source for him. He shares one specific red flag that he looks for when talking to prospective clients. One thing he focuses on showing homeowners and architects so that he doesn't have to worry about his competition. One key to a successful project that is often overlooked in the construction world. He talks about what he believes the role of the general contractor should be, which might surprise you. And there are a couple of things that he feels like his company has cracked the code on that you may want to pay specific attention to. Before we get into that interview, I have a couple of resources that I want to share with you. And here we go. All right, let's talk about a form of chaos I know you've experienced before, a bad customer review. Did you know it only takes one negative review to stop a potential job in its tracks? Your reputation takes years to build. Don't let one review change that. From Yelp to Google to Facebook, GoSite helps you manage and generate reviews all in one easy-to-use place. Research shows your customers need to see at least 30 positive reviews in order to trust your brand, and top-ranking businesses on Google have an average of 40 reviews. So, a job well done and a happy customer aren't just revenue, they're marketing opportunities. GoSite makes it easy to build your credibility and authority as a construction leader by automatically asking your already happy customers for a new review with just one click. Take control of your customer reviews and turn your 5-star success into more revenue with GoSite's easy-to-use mobile app. Get started for free at gosite.com/podcast. That's GOSITE.com/podcast. How many hours have you spent creating and chasing endless invoices? Is your cash flow hurting because of delayed or, even worse, non-payment situations? Doing business the old-fashioned way is wasting your time and money. Take control and get paid on time for your hard work with Approval. Approval is an easy-to-use payment management tool for milestone-based projects. It creates an interactive payment flow designed specifically to help contractors like you automate contract terms and better control your accounts receivable. So how does Approval do that? As a contractor, you start by setting up the project scope and timeline divided by clear project milestones. Then, for each milestone, you decide if it should be paid up front or at completion. You can even advance and commit funds at the beginning of a milestone, which will get released as soon as work is completed. Your client can then view and accept the project, approve each milestone at a time, and make payments all in one place. Now you have accountability to refer back to so that you can reduce errors, avoid project delays, and mitigate risk by connecting each transaction to project milestones. Approval really is a win-win situation. The pay-per-milestone model allows contractors to get paid faster, all while providing homeowners with a better experience and more trust so you can win more jobs. Get started today. Visit withapproval.com to see more and click Request Demo to get in touch. That's withapproval.com. Now, let's jump into my interview with Justin Bride. Enjoy. All right, Justin Bride, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you, Todd. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So We'll talk about your business in just a few minutes, but one of the things that we have in common is we've both spent a substantial amount of time in the commercial world. So talk a little bit about the difference or the contrast between the commercial construction world and the residential construction world.
Sure. I did grow up, so to speak, in the commercial world after I graduated from college with a construction management degree, and then started working for a commercial builder here in Denver. For a few years prior to that, I was in the fix and flip world on the residential side. So got a taste of what the residential market is like and what how the subcontractor, how the industry performs and how it acts. And then over the next close to 10 years, got a very, very clear understanding of all the great things about the commercial world and why it performs so well, why there's so many successes. And I think the main difference between the two is the intentional planning that goes into the commercial construction industry from start to finish, from concept to completion. As a slight aside, our tagline for our company is guiding your project from concept to completion. And this is really with the intention of trying to bring the commercial process into our residential world from start to finish. And we appreciate being involved in a project from the very, very start, of course, through warranty at the finish. But the level of planning and procedure that goes into the commercial world is unparalleled and just much superior to that in the residential world. And it starts with design. And if you can think of anyone in the residential world knows that if there are plans to be received from an architect, they're probably 5 or 6 pages, and they probably have nothing in the way of specifications on materials to be used, especially finished materials to be used. And the expectation is that the owner is going to work with the general contractor directly to kind of figure all that out. And it's an effort to keep the residential design cost low. And to even say that to someone in the commercial world just is like such a shock. I mean, especially knowing that they have a 150-page plan set and a 1,000-page spec book where everything is covered. And that's, as you know, and that's intentionally created to make sure that there's no latitude in what's being built. There's no room for anyone to build something that wasn't intentionally designed. And it also is there to ensure that during the bidding side, there's no room for different assumptions, and so that owners and owners' representatives can compare bids in an apples to apples fashion. So it's all with exceptional intent, like incredible intent, and it's well executed. In the residential world, that just doesn't exist for so many reasons. And probably the biggest is that it's probably a lack of instruction, a lack of understanding on both the supply side and the demand side. Mm-hmm. So on the demand side, you have homeowners who don't do projects very often. And they're expecting that there's going to be a professional supply side, either in design or in execution, that's going to be able to help them along the way. What they don't realize is that in the residential world, at least on the construction side, there aren't a lot of trained professionals. The residential world, I should back up a second to say that the residential world I'm familiar with isn't the track home building of residential homes. Mm-hmm. It's not a Pulte Homes or Oakwood Homes or whatever all the different track home builders are. They have their procedures down, I imagine, because they build home after home after home 1,000 times over. Mm-hmm. The industry I'm talking about is more the custom build world or the residential remodel world. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's trends in the industry where all the suburbs, all the people who would live in the suburbs are now kind of congregating to more central city locations. I don't know if Cincinnati has had a big urban resurgence, but in Denver, it's huge. Since for the past 20 years, Denver proper has boomed, as opposed to the suburbs. And so there's a lot of the residential world I'm talking about is that remodeling, single story additions, maybe taking off the roof and doing a pop top. That type of remodel / custom build world is filled with people in the industry who just don't have a lot of management experience, and they don't know about these commercial processes. So when all of a sudden you have a supply that's lacking in professionalism and a demand side of owners that don't realize that professionalism can exist, those procedures can exist, it makes for a very, very different world than the commercial world.
Yeah, lots of gaps, as I like to call them. The problem with most residential projects that go bad, you could trace it back to there was a gap between assumptions, a gap in the scope, a gap in the design, a gap in expectations. And as you said, the commercial world is all about eliminating risk. And one of the things I learned as a commercial project manager was my job was to assign risk. As a general contractor, the risk needed to be assigned. I wanted to carry as little risk as possible. And where risk lives is in the gaps. And when I look at a residential project, it is just chock full of gaps. And it is no wonder that there are so many issues. So we've talked about the benefits of the commercial rigor in that process. For the people who've been in commercial for all of their career and they haven't experienced residential, what are some of the aspects of working in the residential world that could be applicable and beneficial to the commercial world?
I'm kind of translating that in my own mind to what I like most about the residential world and why I'm still in it and why I'm not. And the quick answer is the commitment that our clients have to their project. Thinking about how this project that we're building for a client, it's their home and if we can be an owner contractor pair that are so committed to the success of the project, it ends up being a great relationship. And so I love that. I love the intentionality that all of our clients have with their own home, knowing that they're taking a home that maybe they've lived in, maybe they haven't, but they're turning into their home to raise their family and their kids. And if I can depending on the client, some of them really like the idea that with historic homes, they're taking a home that was already 100 years old and they're maybe giving another 100 years to its life. And there's just the kind of the sentimental value that goes along with that is important and is something that I don't see in the commercial world. That's probably the biggest reason why we enjoy being in the residential world, is that close connection with our clients. As far as procedures that are part of the residential world that the commercial world can benefit from, I don't know if I can think of anything too quick off the top of my head, except that if there are changes that need to be made, sometimes it's a little easier to push those changes through some conversations and some quicker meetings, as opposed to a specific RFI process that has to happen before a specific change order process that has to be approved before it can be executed. The community is smaller, the groups are smaller, where the owner is a few minutes away normally from the project, and to have a quick on-site meeting to maybe qualitatively talk about the cost implications and the scope of work implications is just a little bit quicker. So I think it can be an environment where reaction times are less.
Yeah. And I think the bedside manner, so to speak, necessary to be a good builder or remodeler is something that a lot of commercial superintendents and project managers could benefit from, because it seems pretty cut and dry, black and white, scope, schedule, budget, safety on the commercial side. And the people who are successful at understanding the emotional side of a residential project and dealing with the human component, having the bedside manner and bringing up issues the right way, the people who are good on the residential side have to have those skills. Otherwise, they either go crazy or they go out of business. But those skills would be helpful to have to transfer some of that bedside manner. I've had plenty of phone calls at 4:00 on a Friday afternoon from a project manager saying, "Hey, this 6-figure change order came up. I need to know by 5:00 today, or the steel erector's leaving and they won't be back for 4 weeks. Please advise." That's not good bedside manner. That's like what I call the gun to the head situation, which is not good. So good stuff. Let's talk about your business. Tell us a little bit about the name of your company, the type of work you do. I know you're in Denver, but just talk a little bit about your business for a few minutes.
Yeah. So in 2012, I started Ascent Contracting. And we are commercially licensed. We primarily do custom residential new homes and remodels, more heavy intensive remodels, like mostly scrapes and builds or pop tops or multiple story additions. So there was a time in our early years that we would focus more on kitchens and bathrooms, but it quickly made sense to go to larger and larger projects, mostly because we have to be able to, we're pretty project management intensive compared to our competition. And we find that pays off on larger projects, is the quickest way that can be said. So we've been working since 2012. We take on selective clients. We take on really just a few projects at a time. We have a couple different project managers, so we have maybe 2 to 3 projects per project manager at any given time, as opposed to trying to do just hundreds of projects or tens and tens of projects at any given time. And it's really with the intention of being able to have a closer level of attention given to each one of those clients, just to make sure there's enough project management effort on every single one of our projects. So we found that it's the same. I think every commercial project manager would know that there's the same level of project management that has to go towards a $1 million job as it does a $100 million job. So we of course know that, and they're trying to make our jobs worth the project management level of effort.
Yeah. A lot of the folks I've worked with have come to the same conclusion. Doing bathroom remodels is so overhead intensive, and there's so many clients and so many moving parts. You're better off to go to larger projects, and you can spread that overhead out, the same overhead cost out over a lot more revenue, less chaos for your customers. It just seems to work a lot better, especially if you're working with trade partners. How many employees do you have, ballpark?
There are 15 of us,
okay,
including me.
Okay. And do you have, I glanced at your website, it looks like you do self-perform some labor. Is that correct?
We do, yeah. So we self-perform all of our demolition and framing. We also self-perform all of our interior woodwork. So interior door setting, trim, cabinets, anything carpentry related, as well as tile. And that's really because of the strengths of one of our initial superintendents came from a tile background, and so he trained some of our guys to be able to do that. So we're split up between a group of project managers and junior project managers, superintendents, and then our framers and our interior team. We used to sub out framing, but as the years went by, we decided that we could probably get a better handle and better control on what was being built with less rework if we started doing it ourselves. And just that the management costs, the time spent managing other framers who were less committed to our projects than we were, just didn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Got it. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the importance of pre-construction. You mentioned that one of the key differences between commercial and residential is the planning, the detailed planning on the commercial side. So let's talk about the importance of pre-construction in the residential industry, and specifically, what do you see what are some of the symptoms of a lack of planning, or what does it look like when the planning is not done well?
Yeah. Well, often when the planning is not done well, and if, let's say, a general contractor was to get into a project after the construction drawings are complete and after a permit has been issued, probably the biggest risk is that it hasn't been accurately priced until that point. And it right off the bat could be well over budget. Whereas if we're able to be involved during the pre-construction side and planning, we can provide iterations of estimates during the different levels of schematic design, DD, CD, all the different levels of design, to help tweak the design and value engineer things to ensure that the project is within budget right from the start.
So here's a question. An issue that comes up a lot is by the time a client comes to somebody, let's say they want to build a house or they want to remodel their kitchen or an addition. The problem is by the time the builder gets involved with the project, the homeowner's already gone to an architect. They've already spent 10 or 20 grand on a set of plans, and the builder's being asked to price it. And they're, in many cases, stuck with this situation of, well, do I price what is drawn so I'm more competitive, or do I price what they really need and fill in all these gaps that I know exist? So how do you advise people to either deal with that situation or prevent it altogether?
Yeah, in our case, what tends to be the most successful approach is providing an estimate that is very detailed and broken down, line by line. All the divisions are listed, and all the tasks and scopes of work within each division are listed and detailed from a qualitative perspective as well as a quantitative perspective. That way, I can clearly price all the per plan line items, and I can include all the non-per plan items that I know are going to come up. And I can, at least from the start, from the first iterations of an estimate, identify them and qualify them and let the homeowner know that there is going to be, this is a scope of work. It's an unknown cost. So we're going to put a budget number to it, and we'll start chipping away at what the final cost will be in the subsequent iterations. I tend to feel that by putting the most detail into the estimate, it gives the entire team, owner, architect, contractor, the most room to be able to tweak the design to make a project that makes the most sense. What I hear, I don't see a lot of my competition's estimates because I just hear that they tend to be much, much more vague, where while we might have a 7-page estimate that has a lot of details but first starting with a recap sheet of all the different divisions, other clients might only get a recap sheet from other general contractors. So they don't really know what's in the project. They certainly don't know if those non-per plan items are included in their project or if they're excluded. All of this, of course, makes it tough to compare apples to apples from the homeowner's perspective, but it also makes it tough for the homeowner to have any confidence in the builder who's providing a vague estimate. So we've just found that by having the most detailed estimates, we can hedge against both of those problems.
Yeah. If you could indoctrinate your prospective clients to get you involved as early as possible, either through social media, YouTube channel, email, whatever the case may be, how would you go about that? If you decided, and maybe you're already doing this, would be a simple way to answer it, but how are you, or how would you recommend someone indoctrinate their prospects, the people who are thinking about a project over the next few years? How would you go about indoctrinating that person to say, you know what, your first move is not to go buy a set of plans. Your first move is to do something else. How would you recommend going about that?
Well, I know that my relationships with all of our clients tend to be multi-year long relationships. And if I'm going to have a multi-year long relationship with anyone, I want it to be with someone I can trust and someone who I can get along with. So I think for homeowners to understand that and place an emphasis on finding a contractor that they want to work with, regardless of price. I mean, I guess first they have to be able to place a prioritization on quality of work versus cost of work. And if quality of work is more valuable than the cost, then they can start finding an entity who's going to be provide the most value that way, in terms of quality of work and quality of the process, quality of the construction experience. If their value is on the cheapest product that kind of passes the smell test, well, they're going to want to find an entity who meets those needs. But for the value-oriented clients, I think that it's in their best interest to find contractors that resonate with them right from the start. But it also coincides with finding a designer who also resonates with them as well, and that making sure that three-headed team, owner, architect, and contractor, are in unison in everything that's going on, and in unison most importantly from the homeowner's desires. That's what's most important to me. How we actually do that. I'm in the first maybe 5 years of the social media world, I might have been more active, but in the last 8 years of social media, I've been less active for all sorts of reasons. And I actually have not been very active from a business perspective on social media. And the reason I find that there are a lot of clients who don't really know what they want yet. And that's fine, but they're not really in a position to select a contractor or proceed with work based off of what they see on social media or what they see from a website. Most people who are ready to get into that world are taking recommendations, and maybe those recommendations come from other people on social media, but I haven't found that they've come from reviewing a contractor's website yet. So our best source of revenue either come from word of mouth of repeat clients, and it's incredibly important for us to keep extremely happy clients so that they'll act as references. But predominantly, our bigger source of revenue comes from our relationships with our architects. So if I was to tell other contractors where to place their emphasis on marketing, it would probably be ensuring that they have great relationships with a handful of architects, and probably expanding that architect network. Because the architect is often the first point of contact when a homeowner is trying to initiate a project, and the architect is already now in a position to kind of vet that homeowner, and the homeowner is now generally aware of the realm of the order of magnitude of the cost of their project. So they're now a serious candidate.
Perfect. So how would you recommend, what are the keys to building relationships with architects or marketing to architects, which is, to me, two very similar activities. A lot of people would think, why would I market to architects? they're not going to write me checks. So how would you, what are some of the keys to marketing to architects?
Yeah. It's always been a relief to the architects that we work with when we handle the projects in a professional and organized manner. When we know more, when right from the start, we know more about the project that they've drawn than any of our competition. We've reviewed their plans inside and out. We understand, how similar or the differences between their project and another one we might have taken. We know we can anticipate the obstacles that are going to come up. We can start identifying some of the pre-construction items that need to happen, and long lead time items that are going to be an issue. When we can just show that we are invested in their project that they've drawn more than our clients, we rarely have to worry about more than our competition is what I meant to say, not our clients. When we're able to show that we're more invested in their project than our competition, we rarely have to worry about our competition. And this might be a flaw of ours, but I actually know very little about my local competition because, frankly, they just don't seem to be very competitive from the ability to provide the level of service that our homeowners appreciate of us. So to be able to show that and to intelligently convey knowledge of a designer's design better than anyone else, I think is the best way to get involved with them. But it's a difficult road because you have to maintain that level of professionalism and intelligence and thoroughness all the way through the project. We do that, and we train our guys to be able to do that very well. And that's how we keep in good contact with our architects. So, it's of course a little bit of a risk that the architect takes to be able to suggest different contractors. So they're going to feel at ease when they know they can suggest someone who's going to take their project very, very seriously.
So it sounds like executing well on projects is a great way to build relationships with architects, which is a great way to get repeat business and get opportunities from architects. But how would you recommend someone go about creating a relationship with an architect they haven't worked with yet?
Yeah. And this is why it's important for us to have multiple revenue, multiple streams of work. And if one stream of work is coming from architects we already have relationships, that's great. But other streams of work are going to come from word of mouth with homeowners. And so a homeowner will suggest to their friend that they should use Ascent Contracting. That friend has already started a relationship with a different architect that we don't know of yet. And now we have an opportunity to prove ourselves to that architect. That's more of a passive way of doing it. And if there was an active way of engaging architects, it would be making phone calls and going to architects' shops is what I assume. That's not my biggest strong suit because we're a little, unfortunately, we're just kind of a little bit too focused on the jobs that we have that we haven't been able to put enough effort into actively marketing to new architects in the way that I'm suggesting that people should do right now. We've had the good fortune of having these multiple streams of work coming into us.
It seems like your clients, current clients and past clients, are your biggest referral source. How do you actively extract those referrals, like practically speaking, if at all? In other words, are you contacting clients every 6 months with something to stay top of mind? Are you doing extended warranties? What are some things either you do to stay in front of past clients, or maybe ideas you've even thought about that you maybe they're one of those strategies you just haven't quite had time to execute yet?
Yeah. I would love to know. I would love to have more ideas on this. The I think the biggest thing that works for us, the most successful avenue, is that we just tend to have, and maybe this is a function of our smaller size, we tend to have a very organic relationship with each one of our clients, and we genuinely like them. And the more we get referred, we get referred to clients who we're probably going to really like. We don't tend to take a lot of projects with clients we feel like we're going to have a tenuous relationship with, and so then we don't get referred by them to other people who might have put us in a tough spot. So we've had from the beginning a very organic way of keeping in contact with our clients, and I mean actually just calling in to check in and see how they're doing, see how their kids did in school this year, 2 years down the road. So we try to have a pretty close relationship with them. And especially, if most of our clients take on larger scale projects, they like us so much from the beginning all the way through the end that they don't want to try to find another general contractor to do, well, not warranty work, but honeydew work. And so if we're in a position to help them out with their smaller needs, they become repeat clients, and that relationship just continues to grow. So it's mostly through how you would keep in contact with your friends and how you would make sure that you're being good friends to your friends.
Yeah. It's pretty simple. It probably doesn't need to be any more complex than that. So you mentioned avoiding difficult clients. What are some? Maybe there's a client you dealt with in the past. They got past that process and they turned out to be difficult. What are some red flags either you have overlooked in the past or red flags you look for that tell you this person or this couple may not or are likely not our ideal client?
Yeah. I'd like to think that every time, if we have a relationship with a client who becomes a tougher client, I would like to think that it's our failure. It's our failure to observe and acknowledge the nature of how that client operates and functions as a human being. It's our failure to be able to set clear expectations at the beginning, or it's our failure to manage those expectations. So first off, I'll find that so many different clients have different communication styles, and we have to be flexible enough to be receptive and responsive to each person's different communication style. If we had it our way, we would only be contracting with the clients who love using our interactive spreadsheets to be able to input their plumbing fixtures and their tile choices and all their selections, and we work in this great spreadsheet-based world of organization and success. Some clients just aren't like that, and while we really don't want to be receiving communication, especially important communication over text, sometimes it happens, and we have to figure out how to take those types of inputs from our clients and then translate them to our system that we know works. We have to be flexible with our clients, or we have to see the benefit in the different nature of each client that we have, and see that as a positive and not just as a detriment. And we also have to be able to recognize what are the things that are going to be important to a specific client versus another client. And this is always a learning experience because everyone has their quirks, is a quick way I would say it. But like some people might be extremely concerned with the level of detail on a certain drawing, and they need to know exactly how a grout joint is going to line up with the shower head or something. And I'm thinking back to years past when that was an example of how we could anticipate that need that the client had and deliver that early to them. Mm-hmm. Everyone just has different drivers and what's important to them, and identifying them and then addressing them, catering to them is really, really important.
Well, you got an audience of a bunch of contractors here, and I'm going to push you a little bit. So what's a red flag that says we're not going to work with, that this is someone we're not going to work with?
Yeah, if I get any hint of litigation, if there's any hint that a client is looking to kind of corner you into a situation where then they can go after you, or corner you in a situation where they're trying to place an excessive amount of risk on you without compensation, and trying to kind of do it in a slightly deceptive manner, you have to be attuned to those types of people, and you have to walk away. And maybe you don't walk away immediately. Maybe you continue the conversation, you press back, and you acknowledge that, hold on, there's a disconnect between risk and compensation in this one area, and you have to push back. And you need to do that before you actually sign an agreement with them. We tend to only sign construction agreements once a full design set has been designed and priced. We don't try to sign construction agreements during any sort of budgetary stage of pricing or SD set of design. Sometimes when we enter into a kind of a design build or a design build relationship, or if we're offering pre-construction services, our agreement is only for those services, and it's very limited so that we don't get pinned. But normally, I think you just have to be attuned to what are the drivers, what are the motivations that your client has, and if you have red flags towards if you see red flags towards litigation, you got to tread very, very lightly, if not walk away.
Yeah, and that is one of the many benefits of a pre-construction services agreement, in my opinion, is it's in everybody's best interest to engage in a pre-construction services agreement to advance the project to a point where you can actually sign a construction agreement and you've closed the gaps. And there is no better way to qualify someone than to actually get them to write a check for a pre-construction agreement or make a commitment for that pre-construction services agreement, and then actually work with them a little while. Let's find out how they're going to operate. How are they going to deal with decisions? If they can't make decisions, this project's not going to go well. Or if they do the he said, she said, and you end up being a marriage counselor and they pit you against each other, the other one, then that's probably not something you want to get involved with. And it's good to have that ripcord option to advance the project, complete the pre-construction agreement, and say, you know what, I don't think this is the right move. It's not in everybody's best interest to do that. And I think that is a huge misconception. People think, well, I have to sign a construction agreement up front and then figure all of this stuff out. But no, you can advance it through design, through a design agreement, through a pre-construction agreement, and you really want to close all of those gaps before you sign a construction agreement. Otherwise, you are looking at something that's just filled with gaps where risk lives, and that's where profit bleeds live, that's where missed expectations live, that's where lost referrals come from, and all sorts of ugliness. A couple more questions here before we land. What is something you believe to be true about the construction business that some might think is unconventional, maybe even a little crazy? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, with respect to the construction is project-based, and you're never building the same thing twice, as opposed to anything that's operations-based, where you're building a widget over and over and over again. You're building the same car billions of times. You have an opportunity in an operations-based industry to create and refine processes and understand the gamut of what your industry entails. In a project-based nature, in the project nature of construction, there's a lot less opportunity, to be able to refine those processes, and it takes a real effort to be able to create them and refine them if you're starting from scratch. And it's just amazing to think that I feel like if I was in an operations-based industry, the fact that anything got built in the residential construction world would be a miracle to me. I wouldn't be able to see how it gets done, because it can be so unconventional and such a kind of a free-for-all of how actually stuff gets built would seem beyond me if I wasn't in this industry. And the more we have these processes and these pre-construction methods, the more we can ensure success every time. And it's I should point out that there's two measures of success that I think there's a little bit of a disconnect on. Many people on the owner side and on the residential builder side think that success equals a built or well-built project. And I say that success, yes, includes that, but success is absolutely a successful construction process for the homeowner, a successful construction experience for the homeowner. And if you can marry the two, if you can provide both, you'll be just much, much better off.
Yeah, I think that's another misconception a lot of construction folks have, is it's all about finished product. And if we're not here to be friends, we're here to build stuff. And if we have to step on relationships, burn bridges with trade partners and designers to get it done, then so be it. And it just doesn't have to be that way.
No, and I think that I'm very aware of what I think is a stigma in the world against builders. And in the same way that I might have a stigma against lawyers from watching movies in Hollywood talking about lawyer jokes and all that, the same thing exists with builders. And they probably could, for good reason. So the question is going to be, are you going to propagate that stigma and continue it, or are you going to combat it and challenge it? And what are the best ways to eliminate that stigma? And we just find that that if we can provide a better construction experience, people have a better outlook on contractors. If we can provide an experience that's rooted in transparency and unity between the owner and the contractor, that stigma will change. So, yeah.
And what do you think where do you get the 80 for the 20, so to speak, when it comes to improving the experience? Where are the few areas that maybe the number one area builders and remodelers should focus on, and folks of all sorts should focus on to improve that experience? In other words, is it communication? Is it documentation? Is it punch list, closeout, having a nice showroom? Where should they start if they want to provide a better experience?
I think it's setting realistic expectations and then owning up to them and then meeting them, if not exceeding them. And that will then translate to all of the different avenues of whether or not it's assistance during design, whether or not it's a clear and open estimate, whether or not it's adhering to a schedule. If people's expectations are set in an incorrect manner, it's going to be nearly impossible to course correct.
Yeah, absolutely. So and this is something people tend to avoid, this is counterintuitive. I think there's a there's a paradox here where people are afraid of setting expectations and anchoring their clients to expectations. They're afraid of leading their client up front, but that's exactly what they need to do to provide a good expectation or to provide a good experience. So, as I've said, I repeated a quote somebody said at one of my events. They're not professional customers, right? This is not Burger King. It's not have it your way. They don't know what they need. And they need a contractor who will lead them through the process, set expectations, hold them accountable, lead the process. So the best thing you can do to provide a good experience is tell them up front, this is what you need to do. This is how this is going to go. Here's our process, and then hold them accountable. But that is something people avoid because they're afraid it might come across as pushy or affect the experience. But I agree. That's the key is if I look at the successful projects I worked on, it's because everybody was clear on the expectations up front, and those expectations actually showed up.
Yeah, I think also a failure on many general contractors' part is to I mentioned this for a second, to think that that success only equals finished product, and that their job is to build the project that's being designed. And I think what's a misstep is to not realize that a general contractor's role, especially in the residential setting, is to act as almost a liaison to the project for the client, almost acting as an owner's representative for the client and helping them through this process that they're not experts at. Residential clients are only going to do a project every 10 years, if not once or twice in their life. And they're going to put down massive sums of money for something that isn't secured yet. Just the idea that you could buy, you could spend $500,000 on a house, and at least you get this fixed house in exchange. But during this construction process, you're putting down money in the forms of a deposit early on, probably, and for sure every month for something that isn't tangible yet, or it's just coming to creation. So it's so much trust that they're having to place in their builder. And if this builder can recognize that trust and be like a little bit humble and like have some humility in the idea that how much trust is being placed in them, and guide their client through the project and work on their behalf, I feel like that's where the real role of any good, competent general contractor.
Yep, I agree. I like that approach, to be the liaison between the client and the project and do what's best for them, not just what's best for the contractor. And I was an owner's rep on the commercial side for probably 8 or 9 years. And that was my job. My job was to be the liaison between all of the different parties to make sure the project was most successful. And that's tough to do when you have a vested interest in the short-term results of that project. But I think it's the best thing to do for the long-term benefit of your business, is to sometimes forego the short-term. What's best right now? What's going to make this easier, faster, more profitable? You're going to get the referrals, and you'll win the long game if you take that approach. Yeah, great stuff. One last question before I ask you to share where people can connect with you. What is something you feel like your company has cracked the code on? Maybe you have your secret sauce, so to speak. You don't have to tell us the secret sauce, but what do you feel like you've really cracked the code on?
Yeah, I think that we have become extremely successful at creating estimates that provide information that's both on plan and not on plan, to be able to set a monetary expectation for the client, and to be able to communicate the different changes that go along with that step by step, is one aspect of where we've become really, really good at our job. The other is taking residential plans that are that just have less information, maybe in conjunction with structural plans that have some information but not all, and we use those to create our own 3D models of all of our projects, where we're almost in a BIM fashion, being able to put information from one plan set and another, to be able to create this model, to be able to, well before it actually gets built, know exactly to the 16th of an inch how long our steel is going to be for a given column versus another one. And that was an effort that we really had to work at over the past several years to really be able to learn the tools needed, learn the tools that exist to be able to get the information that was needed. But we knew that it would allow us to be able to build things and coordinate things in conjunction with each other. Whereas without that modeling, we would have to build a certain portion, see how it lines out, and then build the next portion. And that's all part of our pre-construction services that architects and engineers really appreciate. They don't tend to see other builders come to them with a 3D model that's based on both of their plans, and then we all have weekly or semi-weekly conversations about it, forecasting the next problem.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. And that is the standard in the commercial world to do MEP coordination, and that just coordinating all the details. And now a lot of that stuff is happening via BIM, and no successful project happens without coordinating the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection systems anymore. And I would say it's probably about time to look at that on the residential side as well. So Good stuff. Well, we are running out of time. I appreciate you taking the time to share today. If folks want to connect with you, where are the best places for them to do that, whether that's website, social media, or any other form?
Yeah, well, fortunately, our social media has gotten a lot stronger in the past several months. We hired a marketing agency to be able to help us out and make sure that we were current, up to date, and had more media aspects. So if you were to Facebook us or Instagram, Ascent Contracting Inc. is our company. Of course, our website, www.ascentcontractinginc, ASCENT, is where we're found. If you're local to Denver, we're right in Northwest Denver on the corner of 32nd and Federal on the south side of Highland Park. And we love having prospective clients into our office to chat about their project.
Sounds great. Well, I really appreciate it, Justin. This has been very helpful. Thanks for taking the time to be on here and being generous with your experience and sharing with us today.
Yeah, of course, Todd. Thanks for all your time. I realized just about 5 minutes into this that, man, you say things much more eloquently and much more succinctly than I could ever hope to. So I can't wait to talk more with you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Justin.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
If you're tired of the pain of delayed payment or non-payment situations, here's some good news. You can take control and get paid on time for your hard work with Approval. Approval is a payment management tool for milestone-based projects that allows you to get paid faster. Get started today. Visit withapproval.com to see more and click Request Demo to get in touch and see how it can help your business. That's withapproval.com. There you have it. Hope you got something out of that. Be sure to check the show notes for the links so you can get in touch with Justin. And if you want to eliminate the gaps, eliminate those profit bleeds we talked about that come from doing free estimates, or if you want to tighten up your pre-construction process and get paid for estimates, then you can head over to buildermasterclass.com/script and learn 3 questions that you can ask your client on your next appointment so that they'll see why they want to pay you for an estimate. And you might even be convinced yourself that you never want to do another free estimate again. But you can get that at buildermasterclass.com/script and go get your free training video. Learn those 3 questions before you run another appointment and before you give away another free estimate. As always, I appreciate the ratings and the reviews. If you could take a moment and leave a rating and or a review, or share this podcast with somebody you think would get some value out of it, that would be fantastic. And as always, my name is Todd DeWalt. You can reach me at constructionleadingedge.com or buildermasterclass.com. Lots of free resources there. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. A happy customer isn't just revenue, it's a marketing opportunity. From Google to Yelp to Facebook, join the more than 30,000 small businesses already using GoSite to request, respond, and manage reviews, all from one easy-to-use dashboard. GoSite puts the power back in the hands of you, the construction business owner, with a mobile app that transforms how you run your business by making it easier for customers to find, book, pay, and review your services online. Get started for free